Alright, so this video is going to cover Chapter 4 of Advancing Vocabulary Skills. Go ahead and give it an effort to put these words into groups, into nouns, verbs, adjectives. Let me go ahead and read them and give you any clues I can. Berate, estrange, euphoric, impetuous, there's a clue at the end, O-U-S, infallible, that's actually a clue too, I-B-L-E, maudlin, regress, relinquish, ubiquitous, there's a clue again, O-U-S, and then zenith. Alright, so our first word here is berate, and this one is a verb. And this one, I actually didn't even think about it, but it does end in that ate sound as well, like venerate, which makes it a verb. So Nick's mother often berates him, and when she isn't yelling at him, she ignores him. Vanessa can accept reasonable criticism, but she was upset when her boss berated her loudly, and means is to scold angrily. So the definition of this word really has two parts. Well, the first part of it means to scold, and what we mean by scold is to tell someone that they've done something wrong, or to yell, not necessarily yell, but to talk to someone about what they do wrong as a way of I guess a way of punishment, or as a way of getting them to do it, to not do it again. So that's the first part. The second part of it, though, is this idea that it's always angry. So if you're berating someone, you're criticizing them in a harsh and in an angry way. On page 21, berate is number 4, to criticize or scold harshly. So if you think about it, berate is not, berate is not a pleasant word. To be berated is an embarrassing thing, because you're being told that you've done something wrong, but not in a nice way. It's not a pleasant thing to do, or a pleasant thing to receive. Our next word here is estrange, and this one's a verb. My cousin's recent moodiness has estranged some of his old friends. After his divorce, Gavin didn't want to estrange his children, so he called and visited them often. So what is to drive away. Now be careful about this, because it doesn't have anything to do with a car or any motor vehicle transportation. The way that I remember this word estrange, if we look at it, we have a word that we're very familiar with inside of it, and that word is strange. So the way that I remember it is to estrange really means to make someone strange, or an easier way of thinking of it, means to make someone a stranger. So when we say drive away, in this case, what we're talking about is to push somebody away from you. So to estrange someone means that it's someone who you had a close relationship with, but when you estrange them, you drive them away, or you push them away, basically ending that relationship. On page 21, estrange is number 7, to make unsympathetic or unfriendly, to alienate. So estrange generally means that you're doing something that drives people away because you're doing something unpleasant, or unfriendly, or unsympathetic. So in the first example, it's saying the person's moodiness has estranged some of his old friends. So the reason that the friends don't want to be around him is because the cousin is always in a bad mood. So the people don't enjoy being around him. You might, oftentimes, family members get estranged because maybe they support a different political party, but they refuse to be quiet about it. So they're always talking about their political party or their political beliefs, and causing conflict that people don't enjoy, and so that pushes people away, makes them uncomfortable. Our next word here is euphoric, and this one is an adjective. I was euphoric when I received my grades. To my amazement and joy, they were all A's and B's. Nikki is euphoric today, and it's easy to see why she's in such high spirits. She's just gotten the lead role in our school's production of Beauty and the Beast. So what euphoric means, very happy. Euphoric comes from the word euphoria, which is a noun, and euphoria is like ecstasy or extreme happiness. If you look at the picture that's there, you can see that euphoric is not just a little bit happy, but like extremely happy, right? Those people are incredibly happy about winning that championship. On page 21, euphoric is number 9, overjoyed, having an intense feeling of well-being. So, if you think about it, you might be very happy if you found $5 on the street, but you wouldn't necessarily, well, I guess depending on your situation, but you probably wouldn't be euphoric, because euphoric is more than just a little bit happy. It's incredibly super happy. You might be euphoric if, for example, if you're a follower of sports, and your team had not won the championship in years and years and years. When they win, you might feel euphoric. You might feel euphoric if, if you won the lottery, if you won millions and millions of dollars. That's a situation where you're going to feel euphoric or very, very happy. Our next word here is impetuous, and this one's an adjective. Whenever I make an impetuous purchase, I end up being dissatisfied. The shoes aren't comfortable, the shirt is the wrong color, the jacket costs too much. From now on, I intend to think more carefully before I buy. Children tend to be impetuous and often don't think about the consequence of their actions. For instance, they'll throw snowballs at passing cars without worrying about possibly causing an accident. Impetuous means is impulsive. Impulsive is a word from an earlier book. What impulsive means is that, or what impetuous means that you don't think about what you're doing. You're not the action or the decision that you make is not based on careful thought about things, but more, as we say, spur of the moment. If you're impetuous, it means that you don't have careful planning about things, that you tend to make decisions at the moment, in a hurried fashion. On page 21, impetuous is number 2. Done or acting in a hurry with little thought, or impulsive. So those two things are important when we are defining the word impetuous. One thing is that you do something sort of quickly, and the second thing about it is that you do it without really deeply thinking. Our next word here is infallible, and this one's also an adjective. Computers aren't infallible. If you put the wrong data into a computer, you'll get wrong answers. A sign over my sister's desk reads, "I'm infallible. I never make mistakes." In case you don't get that joke, it's not a really good joke, but mistakes is spelled wrong. So the point is infallible means perfect. If we look at this one way this isn't exactly what it means. But if we take this word apart, we can sort of use this as a trick of remembering it. When we have an IBLE at the end of the word, it means able, or that you can do something, right? That you can do something. So words like readable means that you can read it. Teachable means that you can be taught. Edible, well, that one you may not know, but it means that it can be eaten. In at the beginning of this word means not. So that has us with the middle part, that by itself, F-A-L-L, looks like fall. So infallible should mean that you can't fall. But it's actually not pronounced fall, it's actually called foul, which sounds like the word fail, right? Fail or not to succeed. So one of the ways that helps me to remember this is infallible means that you're not able to fail. So if you're not able to fail, it means that you're perfect. If you're not able to fail, it means that you can't make mistakes. Infallible's number 8 on page 21. Not capable of error or failure, unable to make a mistake. The next word here is maudlin, and this one is an adjective. The verses in greeting cards are often far too sentimental. I prefer humor to such maudlin messages. The authors of maudlin soap operas must feel that they haven't done their job unless the viewers are crying by the end of each show. Maudlin means it means overly sentimental. I don't know if you know this word, but we sometimes say soppy. Soap operas, or for those of you from Latin countries, telenovelas, these are considered maudlin because they're like, the emotions that they're showing in that aren't like the normal kind of emotions that real people have. They're sort of over the top, excessive. One of the things about the word maudlin here, it says overly emotional, and in the first example, where it talks about greeting cards, you're not capturing something of the meaning of it. Maudlin means overly emotional, but the emotions that it's focusing on are sad emotions. So to describe something as maudlin, we talked earlier about the word euphoric. We wouldn't say that euphoric is a kind of maudlin, even though euphoric is an extreme happiness, which is an extreme emotion. We wouldn't describe that as maudlin, because maudlin really means overly emotional, but in a sad way. On page 21, maudlin is number 3, and here it captures it: tearfully sentimental, overly emotional. So to describe something as maudlin, it means it's something that is going to make you cry or feel sad emotions about love or sadness. But it's going to make you feel those emotions to a point that it seems like it's almost ridiculous, that you love that person so much, or that you're so sad about the situation. So you can see that's how soap operas kind of operate. Our next word here is regress, and this is a verb. When my baby sister was born, 7-year-old Jeremy regressed for a while and began sucking his thumb again. Adolescents under stress sometimes regress to childish ways: dependency, temper tantrums, and silliness. What regress means is to go backwards, but not in a physical way. So just like when we were talking about the word estrange, meaning to drive away, that doesn't have anything to do with cars. Regress doesn't have anything to do with physical movement. It doesn't mean to walk backward or to move backward, but what it means is to go back to an earlier stage of development. On page 21, regress is number 10, to return to an earlier, generally worse condition of behavior. So in the first example, this child is 7 years old, but if he regresses, he's going back to a time, he's going back and acting as though he was much younger, and the way that he's acting is by taking the sort of negative qualities of that younger time. So in this case, sucking his thumb. Similarly here, we're saying with adolescents, if they regress, it means that they start acting as though they were younger than they are, acting in a more childish way. Oftentimes, if anybody has dealt with any kind of addiction in their family, addiction to alcohol or tobacco, if someone overcomes their addiction and stops smoking or using the drugs or drinking, there's sometimes when they regress. And what we mean by that is that they go back to their old ways of doing things. So it could be they haven't smoked in 10 years and they go back and they start smoking again. This is called regression. Maybe it's caused by stress or something like that. Or similarly, if someone hasn't drank for a while and then they regress, they go back to drinking. So regress means to go backward to an earlier stage, but in a negative way, not in a positive way, not the positive parts of that thing. Pardon me. So you wouldn't say, if you were older and you became like youthful looking again, we wouldn't really say that you regressed, because even though that's going back to an earlier stage, that's in a positive way, whereas regress is a negative, going backward in a negative way. Relinquish. This one is a verb. No beer is allowed in the family area of the stadium, so fans must relinquish their six-packs at the gate before they take their seats. Donna had to relinquish her share in the beach house because she couldn't afford it anymore. So relinquish means is to give up. And generally it means to give, not give up as in like saying you win, but to give up in the sense of you own something or you have something and you have to release your rights to having that thing, or you have to give that thing to someone else. Generally, when we talk about relinquishing, it means that people are giving up something that they would prefer not to give up, but they have to because of maybe some legal situation or some situation that forces them to give it up. If you look at the cartoon, it says, "I'll relinquish your chair if you get me my dinner." What that means is that the dog really doesn't want to leave the seat, but will give it up if they're given something else. Relinquish is number one, to surrender something or to give up something. So when you're relinquishing, it means that there's something that you have that you're giving to someone else by, not necessarily by force, but because the situation demands, or someone is demanding that you give it up, not because you want to give it up. So you wouldn't, for example, if you're trying to quit smoking, we're not going to say, "I relinquished my cigarettes," and because you're actively wanting to give up your cigarettes. You're not doing it. You're not doing it because someone is forcing you to. But if you were a teenager and your mom caught you smoking, right, and she takes away your cigarettes, in that case you might have to relinquish them because she's taking them by force, and you don't want to give them up, but you're forced to because of the situation. Next word here is ubiquitous, and this one's an adjective. Mites are ubiquitous. They live on top of Mount Everest, in the depths of the ocean, at the South Pole, and even around the roots of your hair. We postponed our plan to drive home on Sunday because a dense fog was ubiquitous and covered the entire town. So what ubiquitous means is everywhere, found everywhere. On page 21, ubiquitous number 5, existing or seeming to exist everywhere at the same time. So this is an important difference here. Ubiquitous, if something is ubiquitous, it means like, it's going to be found everywhere, but it means that, anywhere you turn, you are going to find that thing. Like on everywhere, you can't get away from it, is another way to think about it. If something is ubiquitous, you can't avoid it. It's everywhere. It's everywhere that you are in any situation. Okay. And then our last word here is zenith, and this one's a noun. Florence reached the zenith of her career when she became president of Ace Products. At age 50, my uncle is afraid that he's already passed the zenith of his life, but at age 52, my father thinks the best is yet to come. So what zenith means is the highest point. On page 21, zenith, it says the highest point or condition or the peak. So you'll notice in both of these ones, you find after zenith, we have of and then something. So in the first one, it's the zenith of her career. And in the second one, it's the zenith of his life. So in this point, what we mean by zenith is the zenith of your career means the point in your career where you have the most respect, maybe the most responsibility, and the most money. So after the zenith, everything is going to go down from there. The zenith of your health would be the time that you're the healthiest, the most energy, your body's in the best shape. And then after that point, things are going to go down. So zenith is often used also with I think with the sun. So the zenith of the sun means the highest point that the sun is in the sky. Normally that's sometime around noon, right? That's the highest point. It gets up. It starts from the east, gets up to the highest point, and then it starts going west. So the zenith again can be used for physical things, right? Things that go up and down, because there has to be a movement in order for there to be a highest point. You have to go up and then also come down. But it can also be used for things like your career or your health or your life, which again are things that your health is going to get better and better and better, and then it'll unfortunately get worse for all of us. All right, so go ahead and do the online activities for this, do the questions, and then bring any additional questions that you have to class. All right, see you then. Bye.